Greetings, I'm Dave Gussack, and as ever, I remain the director for the FSU, the Florida State University Institute for the Arts and Art Therapy with the Imprisoned, and this is yet another remarkable episode of Creativity Unconfined. Welcome, and I'm very excited about this, and I'll explain why I'm excited, why this is a coup today. I'm here to introduce Paula Gasparini Santos, who's an immigrant artist born in Vitoria, Brazil, who has lived her life between many cities and many countries. When I tell you where she's coming here from later, it's just amazing. Paula has a bachelor's degree in psychology and art and a master's degree in clinical mental health and in art therapy. Paula's art is the marriage between creativity, poetry, and psychological research. She uses art as a tool for social justice, personal development, and community building. As an art therapist, Paula has worked with different populations with the same goal to utilize art as a tool for liberation. She has worked with previously incarcerated men, which will become a major part of today's discussion, using art as a tool to reintegrate into society. Her work with undocumented Latina women created a sense of home in a foreign culture. No matter what population, Paula sees art as a way to bring together communities despite race, socioeconomic status, or culture. Most passionately, she uses creative platforms as a dialogue for personal activism. In her painting, she incorporates words blended into colorful backgrounds with universal messages about humanity, relationships, self-awareness, justice, collective consciousness, or deeply personal reflections about life and love. And I'm also honored to say I own two of those pieces, so this is my happy face. Paula believes art is a tool for dialogue, and it is in the dialogue that the art is formed. For Paula, she uses her creative practice as a way to find connections in what seems to have apparent differences. She has written here, through art she combines things, colors, identities, paradoxical ideas, contrasts into unified form. Aside from that, enough of that.
Yes, thank God.
Okay, enough of that. But aside from that, I have known Paula for many years. I began basically because, well, I'm going to let her tell the story of how we first met. But I want to point out the reason this is such a coup is because Paula actually now resides in Portugal. That's right. She left us about a year ago to go ahead and gallivant all over Europe. And now she has landed in Portugal, but she is here for a limited time. And she has agreed to spend time with us on this podcast. So, Paula.
Welcome,
My
Dave,
goodness.
to our connection yet again.
I do want to point out that this is a redo. We tried doing this online, completely failed, which is great because now we get this reason for having her here. So welcome.
Thank you.
So tell the story about how, I think it's kind of fun how we ended up first meeting, about 10 years ago?
Yeah, 10,
oh my goodness. Yeah. Tell that story.
Long time ago. So I was a master's. I was doing my master's program.
Was that at Naropa?
Naropa University, the best of the best. Sorry.
We're done with this conversation. Sorry, we have to go now. No, we all love Michael.
Yes, with Michael Franklin and other wonderful professors. But I started my own passion, always liked working with incarcerated individuals, and started my own program there beyond what my level of expertise was. So I was just kind of treading water, trying to figure out what I'm doing with reentry. Like, started a reentry program funded by the Elks Lodge.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
I convinced the Elks Lodge president to give me money and let us use the basement of the Elks Lodge to get these previously incarcerated men to meet me there twice a week to do an art therapy group.
We'll get to the final piece of all of this. But why the incarcerated? What made you say, yes, I want to work with this population?
Well, when I was in college, one of my my college had a lot of volunteer opportunities to do that were part of our curriculum, so undergraduate. Mm-hmm. And one of the ones that were available to us was going into a juvenile detention to teach poetry. And I've always been a poet. I've always liked writing poetry. So I did that for 3 years when I was in California and loved it. That was my favorite thing to do. I loved working with the boys. It was like poetry, slam poetry, and graffiti art. So it was all really fun. We convinced our university, and by we, me and one of my colleagues, that we would work there together to let us do a mural with the guys' art in our school. So like
Oh,
we got to
wow.
do a huge mural in the university campus. So I was just like super involved with that world from undergraduate. And then in graduate school, when we were like supposed to do practicum and things like that, there wasn't anything available to do that work at the time. So I just created it for myself. So I like
That's
asked.
so unlike you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't create things out of
No,
thin
that's
air.
weird.
It just came to me. So then I was in over my head, went to the conference. I knew you were the guy, the art therapy in prison guy. And so I sat at your speech where you make
It's my
us laugh.
speech. Oh, what made you laugh? Did you learn anything? No, but I made them laugh.
No, you never learn anything.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Your content, yes, your research I always read, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Fooled you.
Fooled us.
Yeah.
So then I sat in that line. There's, as you guys know, Dave, there's a line of people waiting to congratulate him on his little speech, and I had no time to waste. I had things and places to be, so I just got to the front of the line, finally got your attention, and I was like, hey, yeah, your speech was great. Enough of that. Can I just please ask you a question? I don't even know what it was about, but it was something about working with them and like a piece that I was struggling with. I really can't remember what it was, but I wanted clinical, like since you were the expert in that field, I just used that opportunity to get
it was a great approach. Yeah.
situation. And then you so kindly signed up for 10 years.
It started as an initial time. I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and Skype. At the time, it was Skype. Let's have a Skype conversation, see where this goes. Because I think first of all, I was really intrigued because you had substance to that question and you really wanted to know something specific about working with the population. And it was after that first meeting, I was like, okay, you have very unique ideas about this. And this is some purely selfish on my part. I'm like, I want to learn about this. Forget about what I can teach you. There was so much I can learn from what you were saying. So it was brilliant.
And you thought maybe like 1-2 meetings.
At the most, 2.
Yeah, turned that into 10 years.
Yeah,
and here we are.
There it is. So we continue to connect, I believe I helped you with your supervision hours. We did some mentorship. Yeah. And then you decided that in between that, you were still doing a lot of your own art, and you were also working with your private practice, and you were working with rather unique populations at the time. Can you give us a little
of the backgrounds of? I was mostly, when I opened my private practice, I was specializing because in Boulder County there aren't many bilingual therapists. So I made sure that I wanted to specialize in Spanish-speaking therapy and work with undocumented Latina mothers. Okay. So that was like a big population I focused on back then. But I also had clients that were previously incarcerated that were part of my private practice to start. But then also I worked with the district attorney's office and got a lot of their cases, so the victims of crime.
Wow.
So I was working with kind of all the population.
On both sides of that
Yeah, both
fence.
sides of this, which is, as you know, since we've done this prison work together, that's my fascination, is the duality of it.
Yeah.
Not staying in the polarization, but...
Well, and I think it's safe to say that many of the people we work with inside have also been on the other side of that fence. So while you're working with those that are victims of crimes, they're the same people that we're working with inside. So how did you find art to work? What was it about the art that you felt was valuable for working with this population?
Especially with which population? The incarcerated? The
incarcerated and the other side, the victims. And there's a follow-up question, but let me...
Yeah. So, immediately I want to speak, since my private practice was mostly with the undocumented mothers. Yeah. I actually found that population to be one of the most fascinating to work with art, because Latin culture, I'm Latin, different Latin roots. Brazil is slightly different than Spanish-speaking countries, obviously, but we have similar cultural backgrounds. There isn't, we're very expressive, but there's a lot of like that culture of survival, right? Especially as an immigrant in a foreign country, you're just working. So like art feels superfluous and not like something you're going to engage in that often. And these women were mostly single mothers, undocumented, working these very low paying jobs, trying to survive in the world. And I just felt it was such a beautiful, like they were so hungry for that place to express in something that felt more playful and more like this little moment where they get to be creative and almost kid-like.
Mm.
So that was my first art therapy, like individual and private practice, that I really fell in love with. Like, wow, art is really powerful within the scope of a clinical practice. And then with the incarcerated individuals, I felt like it was always just the most natural tool for expression. Um, and I didn't feel hesitation ever. Like the reentry guys that showed up to my program, they had never really engaged with art.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that idea of what we've done together now started in my brain of like, man, these guys are so isolated from society. And that was reentry. So they're like out in the world, they're working jobs, but they're so separate because they have that label. So people don't really want to engage with them. They don't have connection. So the fact that I was bringing them into the Elks Lodge, which is typically conservative and not really drawn to working with that population, and they would greet these guys and get involved in this community, and then they were funding the art supplies and like supporting this little group where we just sat in the basement and made art. But then I was like, what about the greater community of, at the time it was Longmont, Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get them communicating? So that's where I started the idea, since I'm an artist and I exhibit. I was like, exhibition is such a great connective tool. Like, I connect with strangers when I exhibit my art. So I got in touch with the guy who owned a gallery, convinced him to host one of my guys' art, and started...
Just one of the guys? Just
one of them. That because it was re-entry, a lot of them, unfortunately, would end up back inside. So the stay wasn't happening. Like, I'd get guys for a couple weeks, and then they'd go away. So I had one guy that stuck around. He was doing his work, and I worked with him for a year and a half and got him his own little art show. And it was one of, like, the coolest moments of my career, of just seeing his family, seeing him for the first time through a creation lens rather than destructive, and seeing him, like, integrating into society and doing beautiful work, like very talented, and I just like saw the light in his eyes come back. And I stayed in touch with that individual for a long time, actually until I moved out. I would see him in the community and always check in, and he worked really hard to get access to his kids again and have connection to...
Was he able to do that?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It was a successful story.
So at the same time you're doing the work with the reentry program, you're doing work with those that are incarcerated, you're working with those that were victims of crimes. Mm-hmm. Did you see, how do I ask this, what were the differences in what you were seeing emerge from that work, and what were the similarities?
So at that specific time, so when I was in graduate school, which was when I created that, of course, cheesy name, Art for Heart. I
remember Art for Heart. I didn't want to say that at the time, but yeah, that's okay.
So cheesy.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to say it. Delightful.
It was worked.
It did. It worked for what it was.
But when I created the Art for Heart, and then actually at the time my internship was at a domestic violence shelter, and I had a lot of individuals in my Art for Heart program that were domestic violence offenders. So that was a really interesting full circle.
Did they know, the people that you were working in the domestic shelter, did they know that you were also working with those that had been sentenced for domestic abuse and violence?
No, probably not.
When you did, I know this.
I'm like,
that ended that. Okay.
Well, I'm trying to think. Probably not, because when I entered like the full speed of internship, I had to pull back from like my volunteering, because Art for Heart was a volunteer thing I was creating. How
did you reconcile the dynamic of working with both those that were incarcerated and working with those that were the victims or the targets of those that were incarcerated?
I think that's where the personal interest in this population like comes in through my personal story of I have a father who is both wonderful and not.
Yeah.
And then I had a stepfather who was wonderful and not. So I, from an early age, experienced duality in one individual, like seeing a person's capacity for destruction and creation in one being. And so I never saw, like, even though my stepfather at the time did bad things, I never saw him as a bad man. My father did bad things. I never saw him as a bad man. So I always, from an early age, held that interest in understanding how do we get to a place where we perpetrate and we hurt people we love, and we get into that space where we get so disconnected from self that we're capable of something like that. And so from an early age, that curiosity was bigger than my judgment or fear of this population.
Okay.
And it kind of is why I think I was always interested in it. I wanted to understand how we get there. Like, how do we have the capacity for so much goodness, and at the same time we can end up doing things that cause a lot of harm.
So what have you come to understand?
That the capacity is in all of us.
Yeah.
That, like...
But there's still a lot of reconciliation that has to happen. I mean, how is it... And I'm asking this for selfish reasons as well. We've talked about this, and I've become fairly adept at compartmentalization. I'm kind of looking for that as well in people. How are you able to reconcile that? The recognize that the action might be bad, but the person is not. I mean, that's a big ask of someone.
How can we not, though? If we have enough self-reflection, like, we're all that, right? Like, I've been a wonderful person in this planet, but I've hurt people unintentionally with, I love Jungian psychology. So, like, we all have shadows.
Okay. We
all have things within ourselves that we don't know really are even there until they show their ugly face, right? And
yeah.
I think I reconcile it because I've reconciled the light and dark in myself. And so I can sit with that in others.
Do you think that's necessary for an artist and or an art therapist to be able to reconcile that in themselves before they then go inside? I mean, there's so many reasons why people find themselves going inside to do this work.
I would say it would be a very helpful thing to have.
Well, that was a softball question, wasn't it? Yeah. So now let's flash forward. We stayed in connections. We were working on different goals. You were doing your own writing. We were mentoring. Pandemic happens. You decide you're going to pick up and move to Tallahassee. After a number of other life changes, you come to Tallahassee. And after some other things that were going on here, you decided, or somehow found your way in being pulled into this project in a local prison. Mm-hmm. Tell us that story and how you ended up roping me into that.
You roped me
No.
into that one.
No, that's not how the story is going to go. Tell me about how this evolved.
Like everything evolves in my life. Things happen.
Yeah.
And I say yes to them before I really think through how much work it's going to be. It happened... I was exhibiting here at my own work. I was doing the grief research for my book.
Right.
So I had the grief art exhibition in town, in the community. And a community member approached me and let me know about Madison Arts Program and how wonderful they are and how they could use some program kind of things like art therapy-esque. And then I don't know how it all happened. Well, I think you got involved, and then and then the ball started rolling.
Let's back up just a little bit, because I think it's fair to say that community member was Julie McBride, and I'm comfortable saying that because she was on a previous episode. She and Mike were on a previous episode. Absolutely, and so Julie. How was it that Julie decided that she was going to sink her claws into you? Because I say that with utmost respect and love for Julie. She's got this ability to be tenacious and make these things happen.
Julie McBride does not have claws. She has love.
Okay. Okay.
And right. she just, she did the little heart love thing towards me. And I was like, well, I'm going to match that. I'll show up wherever you want me to show up. Okay. So... that's how I felt.
Okay, good.
She spoke so
I got pulled in, by the way. I did get pulled in.
About Sergeant Mitchell and what she's doing, and I naturally am drawn to creating programs like this wherever I go. Like, I've been doing these little seed projects everywhere that it felt very much like, of course, like, I have a chapter here in Tallahassee. I got to contribute something to this community, and maybe this is it. So,
can you describe for us what exactly this program began as and what it looked like and what was going on in this particular prison that drew you to this?
What drew me to volunteering here with you was truly Sergeant Mitchell. I I think I saw a woman who is just so selfless, so full of love, so dedicated to something that she didn't need to be dedicated to, is beyond her job description.
Mm-hmm.
And our first tour, right? We did a little tour.
Yeah.
Yep. The first tour, I think that was what solidified, like, okay, no matter how many hours it takes from my very busy life to do this project, I will commit here, because the way her eyes lit up in showing us the murals, how the men were in communion together inside, talking about art, showing us their art, like, I was overwhelmed with, I was speechless.
Yeah.
I had never seen such an inspiring place, and it happened to be inside a prison wall. And I had never seen art doing what art is supposed to do better than in that place.
Yeah.
That I was like, okay. I mean, I said it to you that day. I looked at you and I was like, oh, we're here.
Okay. You heard it here. It was we're here. I'm like, well, okay, fine. All right, I'm in. I think
you were hooked too.
Oh no, I was. I'll admit that as well. We had our initial meeting first with the community members and with Lemoyne, the director of Lemoyne, to talk about using that space as an exhibition for what was ultimately supposed to be a pilot project.
Mm-hmm.
So describe what, because I remember we were only going to do this as a singular project where we would work with these guys for 2 weeks, right?
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember those.
And what do you remember? I'm asking leading questions here. I feel like I'm on I'm on the bench, but do you remember what the impetus was and how we approached them and what the focus was?
So the exhibition piece was something that I was modeling after, basically Art for Heart. I had done that prior and known how impactful that was when I did it in my previous community. And since I am connected to the arts community here as an artist and had just exhibited an art show where I saw how hungry Tallahassee is for depth and connection, like, which shocked me. You know, this town is a little slow and sleepy sometimes, but there's like so much hunger for like real things. Okay. And I saw that in the grief exhibition because I did a lot of community engagement pieces.
The grief exhibition was about 4 or 5 months before our exhibition, if I remember correctly.
I believe so. It was close enough where that's where I used that as the bridge of like, I have another idea for another exhibition.
Yeah.
And once we knew there was a program we could work with, it kind of all just flowed, right? Like they were interested, and then by that being interested, we were able to get Madison interested in letting us come in, and it kind of very organically became this giant thing that it is.
Yeah, before we get into the giantness of it, because it has pretty much exploded, and you left for Portugal.
And then I was like, this is exhausting, I'm out of here.
So during these 2 weeks, we upended their perspective on what art could be. The notion was that we went in there and we saw typical works that are consistent with what Phyllis Kornfeld would have described as sub-block visions, and this very systematic, very parametric type of style in which they were doing portraits that had to look exactly like that. And you managed to get them to loosen up. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? Because I think that's important for some people out there who are listening to hear that there's a hunger for a different type of expression.
Yeah, for authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? I think like when I saw the model we were able to work with, thanks to Rolanda, her vision of choosing.
Rolanda is Sergeant Mitchell's first name. I do want to speak a little bit about her in a little bit.
Please, let's. Yeah. I would love to. Rolanda, Sergeant Mitchell's, like, her handpicking for us to work with the teachers, right? So that's an important piece. Like, the guys we were getting to work with were the guys that were leading the programs inside the arts program. So they're teaching self-taught artists, most of them teaching classes, portrait classes, abstraction classes, whatever classes they were doing, the mobiles, the clay, the soap sculptures, like they were the teachers. So we were getting to teach the teachers. And when I felt like when we walked in that room and knew we introduced ourselves and I got to get a vision for who we were working with, I knew I had no skills to teach these men as an artist. Like the craftsmanship in that room was beyond. I'm not trained as an artist, so I can't teach how to blend, how to do basic art things. My own art comes from expression. That I can teach. How to like feel your feelings and get that catharsis out on a canvas.
Yeah.
And so I kind of stuck to that piece a little bit more of how do we think about our internal landscape in a way while we are creating art.
Yeah.
And I noticed so much rigidity, right? Do you remember that hesitation?
Oh my goodness, yeah. There was a lot of that.
First of all, it's me and you in there. I'm this peppy little girl just all full of energy, and you like trying to contain the program and contain me and my ideas. And
we only work within the comparisons of who we have. If you're not there, I was peppy, but there was a need here for a little bit of structure here.
Yeah, I had crazy ideas, and they were really hesitant when we're suggesting things they're not comfortable with. And my whole grief research, what I'm coming into at this point in my life, was basically grief as a meeting with the unknown. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm boiling in this belief that like we carry grief, and it's this inability to sit with the unknown and impermanence and change, and so we struggle. And so I kind of started doing exercises, right? Like little, all right, draw with your left hand, like just breaking down structure and resistance little by little. And then it just was so magical, to see them, their hunger grew bigger than their fear. And that hunger for freedom of expression, freedom of self, like the self to really be seen fully. It was so organic. Like as soon as we said, hey, it's safe to touch this ledge of the unknown.
Well, it's safer. Let's also recognize that it could be quite daunting. Yeah. Art is by its very nature can be dangerous and vulnerable. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially within that population.
And so to create a picture here, we're talking about a prison that is willing to experiment with a lot of different opportunities. It is a space where people come to when they've got, they've demonstrated that they can be part of a larger community. And the entire prison has unique programming going on. So we were coming into a space in which the Sergeant Mitchell, who it just blows me away of what she was able to create, understood better than anyone this notion of and this became their mantra, who understood the incarcerated better than the incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And so they developed a program that would allow or provide a space for those who had these talents to teach others these talents. Mm-hmm. So here we had these 12 guys. It was supposed to be 12 guys.
I was going to say it was more. Right?
It was, well, initially it was 12 guys. Two of the guys that were helping us set this up, they were the ones organizing it, and you still managed to rope them into doing art.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, one of them was dead set against it, which is ironically the son of the community member, Julie McBride, whose son was like, no, I don't do this. Mm-hmm. And you roped them in. What were some of the other tasks that you did that got them to kind of be okay with thinking outside of those boundaries?
We did a lot of identity work. So kind of back to the polarity piece that brought me into the interest in this field at all. We did those lists, right, of I am not.
Right.
Getting them to think about their identity in where it's restricted, where it can loosen. So I did a lot of kind of poetry therapy in there as well, with a little bit of the art piece of, can we start thinking differently, not only about how we make art, but how we show up as artists. Who are we, our identity and self. So like I think that self-inquiry loop started to feed itself into more willingness to explore, right? Because it became a space where I think we did a good job creating a space that was safe to ask questions about self, other, and art, and in that safety, or at least containment, perhaps it's not safety, but it is contained. We had our little space where we could explore, and we encouraged exploration. Yeah. It allowed them to both explore within self, with other, that relational piece became really inspiring to witness. And then in the art, right? Then we saw the guys ripping the paper, going from realism to abstract, going from whatever to something else, like trying new things. And then naturally, I think the imagery started to reflect that, right? Reflected the more raw parts of self.
Yeah. If hindsight, it's fairly amazing. We were only there, when I say 2 weeks, it was 2 weeks, but it was only 4 days each of those weeks. We didn't go in on Fridays. Yeah, so it was 8 days. And how would you describe the transition from the beginning to the end? You've started doing that. Is there anything that was like a symbol of the changes that they went through? Was there anybody in particular that you remember that kind of underwent massive transformation?
Like an individual who did?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
why not?
Of course, you know.
I'm leading into this. Yeah.
Am I allowed to say the
Don't,
names?
not his name,
Okay.
but describe who he is and what he was doing.
I think that individual held just. I mean, I smile big thinking about it because I remember every time we would leave, I would get emotional about it. Right, like I was getting. I'm very emotional. I'm Latina, and I just loved seeing him go from immense fear, like is the word I would use, to paralysis, almost like a frozenness, to a little bit of a willingness to play with just an experimentation, to full on like mad scientist exploring, ripping things and putting things together and changing form and being detached from form, right? Like that was the big piece too, is we witnessed a lot of the men move away from that art, like you talk about a lot of this in your research, of just like the art being impressive or something that like ends up also being
very product focused.
Yeah, the product ends up being part of the power and control and like safety within respect, right?
To get the approval from those that rule them,
rather than making something because it's fun and it's
an extension of them.
Yeah, or just exploring for the sake of exploring without the attachment to what is this going to look like? What is this final end piece? And yet they were all so beautiful and so harmonious and all of that. So I would say he exemplifies very clearly what we saw in there, and that level of transformation happened within everybody within different doses, right?
Yeah. And I remember that exhibition. There was that unique piece that you added, which gave everybody who attended the exhibition the opportunity to write a response to the cards.
Yes.
Had you done that before?
So at the gallery show, because reentry is different, you have way more flexibility with reentry programs. Yeah. I actually just had invitations, like the audience, I invited them to speak with the artist. But obviously here we can't do that. But that conversation felt really important to me because here we are blessed to get to witness the witness, right? And they're not able to see that reaction to their own art. And I know as an artist, like the biggest gift of exhibiting art is getting to see how your art impacts someone else and what it elicits in someone else, and the like moving part of it, like how does it move, good or bad, right? Like it's getting to witness that is one of my favorite things. So it was kind of a idea out of, as all of, they come from nowhere. They become something. But it was probably one of the most beautiful pieces, I think, for both audience and artist. Yeah. Of getting to have that conversation through the walls, right? Like it's the message gets to be heard, and for both ends. And I think that was a really beautiful bridge that was necessary, specifically for that exhibition.
Well, and I think what was remarkable about that exhibition is there's always, you may not feel this, but I'm always wondering who's going to show up for the exhibition, right? There's still this divide that exists within our culture of the us versus them, and you wonder, we have to be very wary and aware that with these crimes come victims as well. And I think the artists are aware of that as well. Who's attending this? Who's going to be responding to the art that's there? And yet, at this exhibition, there was a remarkable outpouring of support and it was a huge audience for all
Mm-hmm.
of these events. We had family members of the artists
That's
showing
so
up.
special.
Yeah, I mean, I had never experienced that before.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I experienced in the previous one that made me so interested in this exhibition of the work from within the walls, because I think the art holds like safe connection to a population that sometimes we're scared to approach,
Yeah.
scared to get into connection with. Like, it's so unknown for so many people that I feel like art held a place where we can get into that curiosity of it, right? A lot of members of the audience that came in, a lot of them have never considered this population, right? And that was really impactful to them to start viewing them differently, viewing them as human, especially because the exhibition was about human topics that we all feel, right? Emotions, like we had those poetries on the side. The guys got to write up really meaningful artist statements. I had a recording playing. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It was like the I am and I am not sentences were recorded and it was playing in the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like a very, I think it was a universal experience being displayed in there.
Yeah.
With a population that we typically separate from self.
It was amazing, and I'm still to this day very proud that I was part of that, knowing full well that we were done after that. We would do this 2 weeks. We'd do this exhibition for Lemoyne. That would be it. And I knew that the prison program would continue well along without us. Uh-huh. And then what?
And then I submitted, probably without telling you, an artist exhibition proposal to 621 Gallery for my own exhibition, throwing in there perhaps some guys' work could be in there.
So what was your exhibition about as well? Specifically, tell the audience what your focus was on.
Remember.
If I recall, it was actually about a response to the work that you were doing inside.
Yeah, so maybe I had it all planned out, and I just wanted to loop you into one more project.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't here in Tallahassee, for those of you who are driving on I-95 through Maine and may have absolutely no concept of what the art scene looks like here in Tallahassee, it is robust, but it's quite varied. And so Lemoyne is a nice gallery with small spaces. So we have 2 or 3 small rooms, and we filled it up with 12 people. The 621 Gallery, which is down in the Artist District, right, a huge warehouse in which you decided that
we scale big.
Oh,
and I wanted to scale big with I wanted this program because I actually remember where the idea came from now.
Okay.
We had one of the tours of the dorms.
Right.
And I saw how the guys who did not get to participate, right? Because mind you, this is a big arts program with so many participants. And so many men in there are getting to hear these 12 guys so excited about what they're doing with us. Like, it's like, you know, they're reporting back, and I'm like, how do we get all of these guys involved? So we started the idea of big. Yeah. I always, just put it in a we because I know you're going to love these projects.
Of course.
As you did.
Go on.
Yeah, I saw that. So when I saw I remember walking around and I was so overwhelmed because every single guy in there wanted me to look at their art and they were so proud of what they're doing and they wanted it to be exhibited and seen because we all want to be seen. We all want to be acknowledged. And I just felt wrong. It felt wrong to leave out all these wonderful people putting so much energy into creations and that creation having nowhere to go. So naturally, I sought a place for those creations to go.
Let's paint a picture here. This is a prison dorm in which it's this enormous space. I would probably argue it's about, and I may be completely exaggerating, but to me it was a cavernous space of maybe 50 to 100 feet, filled with bunks, metal bunks, usually along the side of the walls, and then there were some singular beds in the middle of the room going down. So there was really no space.
Probably 60 beds.
Yeah,
maybe.
50 to 60 beds in this space, and they all had to share the space, and they would, of course, create their own space by putting up towels, and they would use art in their own, maybe a square foot of area that they could put stuff up. And
That was so cool.
well, but they transformed this space by pushing the bunks out of the way, with permission, of course.
Yeah.
This was all done with permission of the
Yes.
Institute. And they pushed the spaces out, and they created these large work areas where they would paint, and they would sculpt, and they would draw, and they would hold classes in corners of the room. And it wasn't just the 12 guys that we first worked with. It was these 12 guys who became the teachers to these 40 to 50 other guys.
Yeah.
I mean, and do you remember the reaction and response when we first walked in? It wasn't just simply them wanting you to see their work. You couldn't miss their work.
No, it was amazing. And it was one of the most, like, truly, and I say this not dramatically, like, one of the coolest moments in my career of, like, just, I felt so grateful, so privileged to be able to witness so much talent. And as an artist and a deep believer, why I ever entered the art therapy field is, like, I know art is healing. I know art is essential. I know art is like such a part of our DNA, and
Good.
to witness it in, I know,
No
big statements.
no, these are great statements, and I want to digress a little bit away from that, and I want to hone in on that, because I think there is a great separation, a chasm almost, between the arts facilitation and arts world and art therapy. And you're describing the bridge between the two. Can you explain and explore that a little bit further? Because you're an exhibiting artist and an art therapist. You know,
I think it's a disgrace we separate them, right?
Agreed.
And I think that's why I've resisted further education in just the niche of art therapy, because I do not like things that polarize or separate, because that's just at my ethics of, like, connection.
I'm going to call you on this. Isn't there an opportunity for you to, instead of kind of reinforcing that niche and reinforcing that polarization, create that bridge to open it up? I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do here with this institute, and what we're trying to do with all these podcast episodes.
There is. It just wasn't my battle to fight in this world, right?
Oh, okay.
It's your battle.
Damn it.
Yeah. I rope you in so you can keep fighting it after I've started the...
Well, that will come up towards the end of this conversation, how I'm still roped in. Go on.
But I do believe, like, as the fundamentals of being an artist it is about connection. It is about like the realness of life and all of it, right? It's about holding it all. At least that's my own experience as an artist. And when I walked in there, I just saw that. It's like, as an artist, I'm like, I get to witness this, and I'm transformed by witnessing this. Our community needs to witness this and be transformed by it. And these guys are being transformed by being witnessed. How do we get them witnessed in a bigger scale? And I just got excited and said yes to things that became huge, beautiful murals. That piece, the multi-piece mural, like, there was just such cool art.
And those enormous sculptures that took up the major corners of this place. And in amongst all of this, what was supposed to be, maybe there was no supposed to, but there was this enormous cavernous room with this wall in the middle, and what started was that your pieces were on the other side of the wall, and those that were made by the men that were incarcerated were on the front part of the wall, and then on the side space. But your pieces also began to, and I use the word encroach, that's not the right word, but it started to encroach amongst the works done by those that are incarcerated.
So the curation, right, as when you work with galleries, you have to also work with curation. So at first, it was supposed to be just that small room for the guys' work. And then I wanted the guys to have more space than I did. Like, I would have given I would have had one piece and be done. I really used my own artist identity.
Did you say you would have done one piece and it would have been done?
Like, I would have loved to give all the wall space to them.
Yeah.
But I had to work with the curation of... No, truly, I was so stressed making those paintings.
I remember that. We had many conversations. It wasn't pretty. But and these pieces were amazing, and they were enormous. Yeah. They really took up a lot of space, and it was about...
the work inside, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask this question. I don't know if it's a fair question. You may not be able to answer it. But you didn't have to know that those pieces were your response and reflection about working inside, but you can tell that from those pieces. What was it about that came through, do you think? I mean...
Well, I think our theme, right, it was beyond good doing and bad doing, there's a field, I'll meet you there, the Rumi quote, right? Yeah. That was like our mantra for that show, and the work with the guys and all the pieces they got to engage with was about exploring that duality and non-duality, and my pieces just held that in its color palette, or the contrast, the like rigid with soft flowery structures. It was just very much their work and my work. Just, and that was what was wild though, because I wasn't co-creating with them, in the sense I wasn't creating inside the walls, and they weren't creating with us witnessing all the time. We would go in, but not as present as we were with the first project. And when I saw what they created, and it had just by nature been similar to what I was creating, I was like, this is
bingo. That's what I wanted you to underscore. Yeah,
that connection was just there regardless, right? Like we were touching the same content even though we weren't witnessing each other's
you
content.
Were influenced by them, and they were certainly influenced by you.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there was a better way of illustrating that, of how, while on one hand we as a society try to keep them closed off and keep them at arm's length and keep them separate,
so we're all connected.
The minute you're inside, there's a connection, and you're inspired by them and they're inspired by you. And what an amazing message to say what we can do to help change and transform these structures is by taking down that in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that the nature of the show, the content of that non-duality also allowed for that, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember when we had that big, it was an overwhelming amount of guys in the room when we were getting to present this idea.
Oh yeah.
And then we saw their amazing talent and stuff. I think that's the piece that I shared in there. Like, why I do it is because, and I shared this with you when we did the radio, is like, the light that exists in me exists in them, and the darkness in them exists in me, and we get to play with those two areas in form that is like a safe space to do it, like art. We're both getting to be seen.
It's remarkable. Just as a caveat to this, or not a caveat, perhaps an epilogue. So we started planning on doing the exhibition at the training center on grounds at the prison. And as we were developing that, then you decide,
I gotta go.
You gotta go. You're in Portugal. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. Because it wasn't going to end with those shows.
Yeah. I had a lifetime of exhibitions for you to do.
You did. And what's more is you had Sergeant Rolanda Mitchell, who was very much engaged in this and saw this expansion of this program and was writing up the reports, and we were collaborating on the article together. And I remember you were already in Portugal when the saddest news came down, that surprisingly and overwhelmingly, the heart of this project passed away. We lost Sergeant Mitchell, and it was the most heartbreaking situation. And at that point, we decided, you in Portugal, me here in Tallahassee, that the projects needed to continue.
Keep going, yeah.
Not only continue, but this vision of expanding this to where we changed the first letter M from the name of the prison to the Model Arts Program. That we were going to take what she started and incorporate it throughout the state of Florida.
Which is so amazing.
It is, and it's daunting. I went to the funeral, and I saw many parents of those that were incarcerated attending the funeral because of how much they recognized that Sergeant Mitchell was unusual.
Yeah.
And maybe she's not that unusual, though. I do want to point out that when I'm finding out in the work that we're doing, that while structurally and systemically there's some barriers, I'm finding out that there's a lot of people inside who work inside who do see the value of the programming that's happening and do see the value of creating as an impetus for exploration and freedom. We've just gotten a major grant from FSU to expand the program to the Model Arts Program. We're going to be working in providing arts programming in Marion and in Polk, and working with the artist facilitators down in Everglades, that's down in Miami, so that together we can meet in the middle and cover the entire state. We will have to bring this to a close so that you can go ahead and get on that plane back to Portugal. Yes. But I can't tell you how wonderful it was to sit down with you and kind of revisit all of this work together. This
It was beautiful. It was a really cool project. Probably my favorite project I've ever done in my life.
so far.
Yeah, got lots
So
ahead.
Good, good. And I know that when given a chance, whenever you show up again for any window of time here in Tallahassee, I will be roping you into some projects.
I would love that.
All right. Thank you, Paula.